This is a real image of a snail infected by a parasite that manipulates its body and behavior, creating what appears to be a real-life zombie. Scientists call them Leucochloridium paradoxum. Late people call them green-banded brood sacs, but we call them parasitic disco zombie worms, not because we have to, but because we can. These worms are as trippy as a light-up dance floor, complete with strobes, and they'll make any snail they enter panic at the disco. This is a green-banded brood sac, huh? The circle of life, what a wonderful thing. Except for maybe when that circle is a complete horror spiral that involves mind-controlling parasites, unwilling zombies, with eyes that are on a 3-day bender, live worms laying eggs inside a bird's butts, and culminating in a rancid, egg-riddled poop feast. That is how the green-banded brood sac survives, generation to generation more or less. It begins and I suppose also ends with a steaming pile of bird poop. Green-banded brood sacs find their way into their unwitting hosts by stowing away in the poop of passerines, which are sometimes referred to as perching birds, or songbirds, this enormous order of birds. With over 60 to 100 species on every continent, except for Antarctica comprises about 60% of all birds. Because of the great number of hosts, the green-banded brood sac can be found in Europe, North America, and Japan, and recently, there have been some unconfirmed reports. From South America, appealing to such a wide target audience is definitely smart marketing. On the part of the green-banded brood sac, it ensures it'll be gobbled up quickly after its severely diabolical scheme is finally in place, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start at the beginning with the egg-riddled poop. Along comes a member of the Succinidae family, the favorite snail, that the green-banded brood sac targets. These snails are colloquially called amber snails because of their amber-colored shells, which are thin and translucent. This translucent quality is going to be important later. Well, gross? For us, bird poop is actually a highly nutritious meal, at least for a snail. Bird droppings are full of nitrogen, phosphorus, and other essential nutrients. But before anyone starts a new diet fad, I have to express very clearly that bird turds are chock full of bacteria, fungi, and parasites, so they should never be consumed by humans. But I guess the snails didn't get the memo about the parasites in the bird poop because they gobbled it up like candy, green-banded brood sac eggs and all. Once inside the snail, the green-banded brood sac sets into motion the first phase of its plan. You've heard of a full-body makeover. This is a full-body takeover. Straight out of a horror movie, once inside the snail, the eggs hatch and turn into long, hairy larvae called miracidia, which begin wandering through the snail's body. Thankfully for the snail, these little immature freaks don't have mouths, so like a lot of parasitic worms, they just soak up these snails' nutrients. Once they've sent out tentacles to locate the eye stalks, they are ready to continue their ultimate plan, going back to where they came from, the digestive tract of a bird. To do this, the miracidia turns into the famous brood sac, which is basically a living bag, full of baby worm clones. Creepy at this point, the brood sac gets its psychedelic, disco pulsating colors. The idea is to be as conspicuous as possible to get the attention of a hungry bird. I know, being eaten alive seems like a nightmarish way to go, but the brood sac has a big picture approach. Each sac can contain up to 250 larvae, and a single snail can host multiple brood sacs, which is why you see snails with pulsating parasites in both eye stalks. And all of that is done just to look delicious to birds. Parasitic disco worms need not just one, but 2 whole species in order to complete their life cycle, because messing with one isn't horrific enough. In the case of the green-banded brood sac, the snail is an intermediate host, the organism where the parasite lives and develops. The definitive host, in this case the bird, is where the parasite reaches sexual maturity, what once inside the green-banded brood sac, larvae anchored to the wall of the bird's gut, where they mate with other adults, now called distomes, to increase the likelihood of mating success and producing a whole cloaca load of eggs. The adults are hermaphrodites, containing both male and female reproductive organs. How convenient, about 2 weeks later, they start laying eggs, setting the trap for the next unsuspecting snail and completing their life cycle. But wait, hold on. Perching birds don't typically eat snails. How in the heck are the larvae going to get into the gut of a bird that doesn't even eat snails? Well, the green-banded brood sac has thought of everything. This is where brood sac and their name comes in. This is the structure that turns the snails into a neon sign screaming, "I'm full of juicy caterpillars, eat me." the end of the larva that is shoved into the snail's eye stalks.
It's not just green bands,
But an array of colors like white, red, black, and orange. The goal here is to be as garish as possible, to catch the eye of passing birds. But being colorful isn't enough. Like a flashing advertisement on a tablet's website, the green banded brood sac wiggles and pulsates, rhythmically up to 80 times per minute. To further attract a bird's attention, all of this is in an effort to appear just like something a passerine would love to eat, like a moth or butterfly larva. This is a classic case of aggressive mimicry. Aggressive mimicry is when a predator or a parasite imitates another species to manipulate the behavior of their prey or host. There are many examples of this in nature. Females of the firefly genus Photurus, for example, will blink the patterns of other firefly species to draw in males and then eat them. Several anglerfish species wiggle a worm-like structure to make other fish believe it's a juicy snack, to be had before snapping them up. Even the European cuckoo's eggs have evolved to look like those of other species, so the unwitting parents will raise the cuckoo hatchling as their own. In the case of the green-banded brood sacs, the goal of this mimicry is to be enjoyed as a sumptuous songbird meal. You would think that to combat all of this, the snail would just pull in its eye stalks, as it's capable of doing, and go hide under a rock till it was all over. Not so much. The brood sac has completely taken up the snail's toll by stalk real estate, and then some. The surface of the stalk has in fact become so stretched thin that it's completely see-through, allowing for this 5K display of color and motion. That's why, as I mentioned before, the translucent skin of the amber snail plays a key role in this grift. The snail can do nothing about all this, and is likely also already blind by the stage. The snail's reproductive system is suppressed too, and all of its energy goes to supporting its technicolor parasite. And to make matters worse, if the bird doesn't eat the whole snail, but just takes out the brood sacs, the snail will regenerate the eye stalks just to be quickly taken over by the brood sacs again. The snail is truly powerless against this wriggling villain. Okay, so now the snail's eye stalks are flashing bright colors, making them look just like a juicy caterpillar. But now comes the next problem for the brood sacs. Snails are nocturnal, moving around at night, so they don't get fried by the sun. And passerines are out during the day. What's the use of looking like a snack if no bird will ever see you? Don't you worry, this nightmare parasite has a fix for that too. And yes, in case you were wondering how this creature could be even more like a horror movie monster, it starts mind-controlling the snail. If they didn't remind you of Kaa from the Jungle Book before, with their rhythmically moving, color-changing eyes, they will now with their powers of hypnotization. While we still don't understand exactly how it does it, the brood sac compels the snail to abandon its former nightlife and go out into the sun. The infected snail will crawl up higher than usual, into the bright light of the sun, and wait for a passing passerine. Despite having no structure that we know of anyway that should help it see or even register the difference between night and day, the green-banded brood sacs only do their pulsating. Look at me dance during the day. So far, scientists haven't figured out how they do it.
It's one of their great mysteries.
One thing we know for sure though, they really make these snails look otherworldly. But the green-banded brood sac is not the only flatworm parasite
That has such a profound effect on its host.
When a bird comes by plucking out the eyes of the snail, all the brood sac's hard work has finally paid off. And in an instant, the snail is released from this nightmare. Most snails eventually regenerate and are able to return to their normal, snaily lives. Their reproduction, which the green-banded brood sac had switched off to ensure not a bit of energy was wasted. During its time inside even comes back online. The snail is safe at least, until they eat their next pile of infected bird poo. This is just what the green-banded brood sac wants. Living host. To help it continue its horror show life cycle, again and again someone should conduct research on whether the amber snails ever learn from their eye-popping mistakes. I'm guessing nope on this one, so what should we talk about next? Please let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for new episodes every week. Thank you for watching and take care.